Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fueled by Progress, hosted by me, Mark Joseph Szymanski. Today, we are joined via Zoom from Columbus, Ohio, by Mr. Ryan Praskovich. How are you doing, man?
Good. How about yourself, man?
Very good, very good. To give the people a little bit of context, we kind of, I want to say reconnected, but I don't know if we were ever
Mhm.
like initially connected. We kind of from the same neck of the woods, like we were talking about before we started went live here, and we're both Canavan grads and actually Pitt grads too, I guess, right?
Same school too.
Yeah, and so that's pretty interesting. But I think I put like a post on Instagram, and we have followed each other on there. And you shot over some great book recommendations that I added to the site, so I appreciate that. And then also we were talking about finance. That was honestly probably like one of the biggest conversations I've ever had in Instagram DMs. I was going back
Yeah.
multiple times, typing it in somewhere else, and then pasting it in because we were over the character limit.
Yeah.
But good stuff though, man. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm excited to chat about everything they have going on.
Of course. Yeah. Looking forward to it. I know the conversations I'd see typing, and I'm like, oh, it went away. Maybe I've tapped him out or something like that. It was good to see
Yeah,
responses come
yeah,
back too. I was looking forward to it because I
yeah.
think it's just where I'm at. I think it's important to have those conversations and people to have those conversations with. So
100%, 100%, man. I think there's a lot of people, kind of around, our age, like 20s, and in that realm that, either I always thought for me it was tough because I thought that I had a pretty decent financial upbringing as far as like the knowledge base, right? Like we weren't rich or anything like that. We were just,
hmm
like regular middle class, but like, you work hard, you save your money, you invest a little bit if you're feeling a little risky and you want to try to get that wealth, but ultimately those are kind of the same things that I think, I've tried to do over the past few years. Obviously through that conversation, I've realized that that's something that you're passionate about. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it, in some detail of like strategies and stuff like that, because I think that that's just an extremely valuable conversation. And there are people out there, which I'm sure we'll mention, like Dave Ramsey and stuff, that are putting good
hmm
information out in the world. But I think it's different coming from somebody who's actually like done it and is more relatable, like you or I, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. There's a lot of knowledge out there. It's just how you apply it too. I think
Yeah,
it's tough, but it,
yeah,
it it just takes that first step to kind of figure out and move past that and
mhm.
just continue further.
Definitely, definitely. So maybe give a little bit about like your background and stuff like that. So, Canavan, Pitt. If you want to talk about like information science, like the school at Pitt that we both went through. Honestly, I can't remember too much of it. I just had a buddy of mine on from college as well, like last episode, and he
Yeah.
was like bringing up these different like memories and like teachers and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's like just such a distant blur for me. So we can even talk about that too. I don't know if that's something obviously we're going to get into here later on, is what you do now for a living and how that has how that had an effect on you, and it's gotten you where you're at. But maybe if we just start there briefly and we kind of touch on kind of college, like what was your experience like? Do you think we can relate it financially too? Like what was all that about? What do you think?
Yeah. So I actually originally didn't start at Pitt. My
Hmm.
freshman year was at Indiana University of Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
IUP. I usually
yep.
party to some people.
Yeah.
And really for me, just senior year, just go back to high school,
Yeah.
just real quick.
Hmm.
I was a horrible student. I think
Really.
back to it. I was just talking to my wife in the car. I'm like, man, like I love learning right now. Like I just want to like sit down, read books, kind of just increase my knowledge. Freshman, sophomore, junior year, I remember I just was awful at Canada. Like, I was like, what the heck? Senior year, something clicked, and it just kind of was like, all right, I got to buckle down. Like college is down the line,
Yeah.
and I remember kind of where I wanted to go was computers,
Hmm.
but specifically cybersecurity. I don't know really what the spark was there.
Hmm.
I love taking things apart, especially computers, saying like, oh, that's the RAM chip. Like
Yeah.
you see the hardware. There's so much going on in the software version of that. But then um, CSI, man, I
Yeah.
just binged watch CSI. I love that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And so I kind of thought, hey, why not be an investigator, but also kind of bring it to the cyber computer world, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
um, very early on, I knew what I wanted to do, and that was I think that's crucial to where I'm at today. and just kind of the path that I'm taking.
Mm-hmm.
I know that decision's very difficult for some folks, and it takes, sometimes a lifetime to figure that out. But I'm doing what I like and what I love. So IUP, they actually had a program, was computer science, information assurance, and that was like the only degree that I could find relatively close, even at Pitt, at all of these different places. That was kind of like, hey, this is a focus on computer science, but hey, let's get that information assurance stuff, cryptology, that kind of stuff. And so I decided to go to IUP because of the major, but also the cost. My dad was very like, oh yeah, you want to go to a state school?
Mm-hmm.
It costs dramatically less. I mean,
Yeah.
the room and board at IUP was more than the tuition,
Yeah.
which was staggering. I mean, but I got there. The campus was nice, even if it's in the middle of Pennsylvania. And my first, I love Pennsylvania. A big hunter too, but my first experience on the college campus on like right after Thanksgiving, just going to class, and I just hear like gunshots, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're like in the middle of Indiana, PA, and there's people hunting not too far away, and it's people getting their deer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was just kind of like a somewhat of a culture shock.
Yeah. Certainly. I bet. Yeah.
And it just, it was absolutely insane. But just going to IUP, it felt like it wasn't challenging. And I say that and not in any boastful manner at
Mm-hmm.
all. Just some of the courseworks, geography and all of these elective courses. And, I'm this Canevin student who did awful all the way through. I started buckling down senior year,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm getting like 100% plus in some courses. And I'm like, what? Like, this is not what I was told college was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it goes into a lot of things, my decision to move, but harder schoolwork and from a bigger institution was kind of those things. So I decided to go to Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sophomore, junior, senior year. I finished at Pitt, and it was an awesome move. I know that the very first like transfer student orientation, I signed up for computer science, and after second semester learning C++, I'm like, I like this, but at the same time, like, I don't know if I could just sit and do code every single day and just like buckle down doing that kind of stuff. So I was worried, to be quite honest. And, math was not my strong suit. So I took calculus, and I think most of the kids in my class failed second semester of freshman year. And I definitely did too. And I don't know what happened, but I got a C. I was like, I'll take it. And so going to Pitt, the orientation, I think that was a crucial part to the rest of college for me. Mm-hmm. So I was going to computer science, and then just saw different booths, and I saw the information science booth. And what was interesting is Shabana was her name. I don't know how I can remember that name. Her name was Shabana. And she just started talking, and she was like, oh yeah, information science, it's computers, but it's not specifically programming. I'm already like, okay, cool, that's awesome. Some of the prerequisites, the highest math you have to take is calculus 1. Okay, that's a big prerequisite.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was very recent, must have been, that they also included a specialization path of networks and security. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like hook, line, sinker. Like, if I'm going to go to Pitt, I mean, I need to program, but really I don't want programming to be what I do. Mm-hmm. So it was like, as soon as she gave me her spiel, I instantly signed up for the information science school, mm-hmm. eventually flipped, and then kind of the rest is history on that one there. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got to Pitt. And it was a big change of pace. I mean, just going from electives, I think my biggest elective, and IUP is one of the biggest state schools. One of the biggest electives I had was like the intro to music class, and there was probably like 50 to 100 people. Let's just say 75 people.
Hmm.
My first class that I had at Pitt was, I think it was Lawrence. I can't remember the building
Yeah.
names anymore.
Hmm.
But it was with Professor Zuckoff. It was Intro to Psychology, and it was like 350 people. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa. I mean, immediately different. It was
Yeah.
amazing to walk through campus and just to see like, okay, like cool, this is where I'm supposed to be. I feel that on the first walk to the class, and then I see 350 people. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And it just is a complete difference. Class sizes, I think, have a dramatic change to the way a course feels.
Mhm.
A lot of those intro courses at Pitt have those 300 to 400 kids, which is good. I mean, you got to get everyone through the electives. There's a ton of kids in the school, but I mean, you have to follow. If you're
Mhm.
not following, I mean, you are left behind. And that's
Mhm.
just how it is. There's too many people to worry about. You have to do the work yourself. And if you don't, I mean, immediately you're falling behind.
Yeah.
You miss one class, you're already way behind. It's absolutely absurd. So
Yeah.
it was an exciting change.
Mhm.
And it got me to where I'm at today. And I'm really appreciative of that, even if the tuition was almost 3 times as much.
Yeah.
I'm in Columbus because of Pitt, and I
Mhm.
can definitely appreciate that there. So
Nice. Yeah, and I think that just kind of hit on a couple of those things there. I think that it's really interesting the path that you took. I was in a similar one. I went to, I think it was in computer engineering first, and then I went to computer sci, and then I went to information science. And I wish I would have started in information science because that was absolutely where I needed to be. The whole programming and everything like that. It's cool. It's good. It's a good skill, but I don't think I could, do it all day. So it's just tough.
yeah, it just it blew my mind. It is an art. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people think that tech geeks and those kinds of folks are specifically like, I just code, my brain works as code, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there is an art and a massive level of creativity when it comes to those kinds of things too. So it's funny. I come from a really artistic family. My
Yeah.
mom's a graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's a City Pittsburgh fireman, so
Yeah.
he doesn't really have the
Yeah.
creative side, I
Yeah.
guess. But my sister was, I mean, she's an artist right now. She's a full-time artist, was an art teacher.
Nice.
She was in plays in high school. Brother is playing plays in high school. He's a director, got his degree in movies and directing. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have that creative side. And through programming, that really shows it there. Bagpiping is a separate thing, but
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you got bagpiping. That's super creative too. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. But just in such a different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So it was tough. I actually had a lot of friends in the engineering school,
Yeah.
and they almost convinced me. Just that building was one of the coolest buildings
Yeah.
I've ever been in. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is cool. Like smart people, and they've got like their breadboards and circuitry in like
Yeah.
the lobby. I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah. It was a cool vibe. Yeah. But it's just, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think I have different, differing opinions on college all the time, just because like, I think it was good. I think it definitely afforded me, like you said, like a lot of opportunities. Like you said, you wouldn't be where you're at today if it wasn't for Pitt. But there's a lot of things there. And I think it's the conversation that I have quite often is not necessarily, is it worth it, but kind of, again, if we relate it to almost like financially and things like that, you just get so much experience. And I think it varies from person to person because, so for instance, like, let me ask you this question. Did you live at Pitt? Did you live down on campus?
So sophomore year, when I did move, I didn't live on campus or in campus housing. I actually lived in a house with a bunch of high school buddies,
Yeah.
actually, on South Neville Street. And it was this townhouse right next. I mean, our back door, if you open the back door, we were looking at Central Catholic.
I got you.
And so, no, I didn't live on campus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wasn't too far, but I'm sure I would have gotten a better college experience potentially if I went
Mm-hmm.
to on-campus housing sophomore year. But it just kind of was like, it's whatever. It's
Right.
okay. I had that freshman year. Had a great time with the people at IUP. it's interesting because just, don't really talk to these people anymore, but we
Right.
all follow each other on Facebook and Instagram, those kinds of things. And it's just like so interesting to see where everyone is at in their lives. Like someone just got engaged, someone just had a kid, they just got a job, they bought a house, and it's so interesting. I mean, social media, but just kind of seeing where these people have gone.
Yeah.
I appreciated that experience, but yeah, sophomore year, and for the rest, it was off house.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I think again the same type of thing. I actually didn't stay down there. I just commuted from my house. So it was a little different experience, obviously, as far as the college like vibe went and everything. But like what are your thoughts on like is the value that do you think the value that you got out of college equates to the actual dollar amount that like that you've had for student loans or anything like that? Like is because that's always a question for me, especially as the cost of tuition continues to go up and degrees and things like that are becoming, depending on what you go for, more or less valuable. I just love to hear perspectives on this specifically.
Yeah, I think for me, and knowing what I wanted to do, I think the going to college and even going to a more expensive university was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as you just mentioned, it affords you opportunities, which is a fantastic thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I got my job in Columbus because I got an email at my Pitt email address.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that, college is very expensive. If you're uncertain, I mean, I think it's a totally feasible approach to go community college, even though that's kind of not I think everyone in high school thinks that, oh, I should be going to the 4-year university because that's what everyone's doing. That is what the status quo is.
Yeah.
I have to go to the 4-year university. It's going to be an expensive one because I need my college experience. This is what it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need the college experience, but I think that's also just kind of the immaturity of the next step.
Right.
I think a lot of folks jump into college without the additional thoughts of what does after college look like?
Mm-hmm.
What does salary? What do these things look like? How much student debt am I going to go into? And what percentage of my student debt is it to my income and those kinds of things? And am I going to be able to pay it off in the 10 years that the initial payment plans stay at? So it's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it was worth it to get to where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm.
I think coursework and all of the things you learn in class do not teach you what the real life is all about. Yep. And the real world is all about. And you're going to gain much more experience working than you are going to get from school.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff that I still use today that I've learned at school. And it's super important that I still use those skills. But at the same time, I think I think just for everyone, the experience is gained by actually putting to action what you've learned. But there's just so many different things along the way that you learn that you would never get at school. The coursework is theory based. And I mean, hey, this is an IP address and this is how these work. Once you get working, you're like, you just really start to figure those things out quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope that answered your question.
No, yeah, for sure. I think that, like I said, it's different for everyone. And I just like to ask the question because everybody comes from a different place and anything that like, as far as content and stuff like this is concerned, if we get that message out to more people, it's like you articulated it brilliantly. It's like, just think about what after college is going to look like, because it doesn't matter. A lot of people can go to college if they want to get a degree that is necessary for the next step, but a lot of people don't really have to. This comes from the notion of this idea that everybody needs to go and everybody should go, and I just don't think that's the most productive way to frame that, and have that conversation.
I 100% agree. Yeah. I as we were just talking there, it actually made me think back to Mr. Fazio's class, and mm-hmm. after our senior retrospectives, writing your whole life story or whatever you wanted to write about. You got an A, but you wrote something that was super introspective. And I think that was an awesome paper. And I think for a lot of people, that was one of the best things that they did in high school, was to look back and see the decisions that got them to where they are at that moment. What it was interesting too is attached to the senior retrospective was I'm pretty sure it was the first day of class at Mr. Fazio's. He said, he gave you a bunch of questions. He said, I've got my senior retrospective somewhere. I forget all the questions, but it was just, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And at that age, you're kind of like, man, life is changing crazy. I mean, there's so many decisions that you make at that age that can just totally diverge your path, those kinds of things. But it's just even having that thought, just having that future long-term goals or just ideas is a humongous thing, to just kind of set those goals and be like, no, this is what I want. This is, and what is the plan? What are the next steps? You have to take that first step, and you need to set up those subsequent steps to get to where you want to be. Not saying that those things are 100% set in stone. Right. They will change, but just having that idea and something to work towards, I think, is something super important that I don't know how most other people feel about that. But I'm such a goal-oriented person. It's funny.
Yeah.
And my wife, I'm like, we need, what are our goals for 2021? What are we gonna do? She's like, I don't know. All right, we need to set up a list. I don't want to set up a list. It's like a constant, we're figuring that out, and it's it is an exciting part. Sometimes like, no, we need a goal. We two places where we differ, but it's doing those things together, even if it's not your strong suit. You just gotta work those things together for you both to be happy.
Certainly. So. Yeah, no, man, it's so funny you say that, because and I'm super glad we connected again, because it seems like everything is just like, there's a lot of similarities here. You literally described mine and my girlfriend Amanda's relationship, where it's like, very goal oriented. And I think, obviously people come around, and like you mentioned with relationships and stuff like that, you kind of just, work together as a team on those things. But in a broader sense, I struggle to completely understand that sometimes with people, where I've just become such a creature of, like you said, goal-oriented thinking and planning. And it's not like, oh, I need to do these exact things at this exact time on these exact days. I think of it more as like, well, I look at my life in the next 5 years, like Mr. Fazio kind of almost instilled with us in a sense. And I've had a bunch of other influences, such as like Jordan Peterson and like just other people like that, from that indirectly, right? I call it like from YouTube and just almost influencer type stuff, but just insightful thoughts, right? And I have gotten to this point now where it's like, I want to have some semblance of a plan. Like, I just don't want to be like running like a chicken with my head cut off. And I understand and empathize people that like might be afraid of that in a certain way, or whatever the reason is, that like, I think maybe even myself for a long time, you don't want to set goals because you don't want to not hit them, right? But at the same time, you got to change your mindset on that. You got to think, well, I'm going to set this goal and I'm going to work really hard to get there. If I don't get there, that's okay. Maybe I wasn't meant to get there, or maybe like it's going to take a little longer. I mean, shit happens, right? But like, you got to have an aim. You got to have somewhere where you're going, or you're never going to get anywhere close to it, right? It's just the way
I think one of the big things is people are scared to fail. I mean, I'm 100% scared to fail. But I mean, in failing, you learn. I mean, Thomas Edison, this dumb analogy, but like, oh, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways to, not make a light bulb. It all really comes down to your thought process of how you do things. Because if you're always going to have a negative mindset, or think, oh man, I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to do what I'm setting myself to do, then you're not going to do it. Yep. It really comes down to consistency of being able to do these things, and setting goals, SMART goals. I mean, that acronym, I think is super. You have to make your goals SMART. Mm-hmm. Someone says, "Oh, I want to lose weight this coming year." What does that mean? I mean, specifically, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You want to lose weight. Yeah. You could lose half a pound and that you just accomplished your goal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to lose 15 pounds by a certain date, yeah, that's a much better goal. Is it realistic? That all comes down to your whole process of how you set yourself up for that kind of stuff. So it's really setting up yourself for success, and consistency. I think consistency is such a huge part to that. One of your book suggestions and a book that I did have, and actually I think your post kind of was like, yeah, I got to read The Power of Habit next.
Yeah.
I read it in 2 days. It was an awesome book. I mean, we are so many habits. It's really just brain shortcuts. Yep. I mean, okay, I wake up. What are you going to do? What's your habitualized routines? And how do you fix those things if you want them to be fixed? Smoking or whatever else. I mean, you have to set new different rewards and cues and routines and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm just kind of droning on at this point.
No. It's all good stuff, man. It just speaks to the point. It's honestly more than anything, goals are important, I think, but even to sum it up and to kind of like, kind of take everything that we just said there, it's almost just more about your mindset. Like I think you mentioned there a little bit in one way or another, and your outlook on things. It's honestly, it's a hallmark of this show, right? Fueled by Progress is like, you just always want to continue to get better. And every single time you make a little bit of a step, you're energized to keep going. Right. And it's not like, I think sometimes, if you're fearing failure or something, you're thinking of like a goal or like a deadline as like a trap. And in many cases, it can feel like that, especially like when you're told to do something in school and all that sort of stuff you don't really want to do. But man, there is nothing more fun in my life than saying, I'm going to build a website and I'm going to do it by this day or whatever. And you just go and you do it. Like, it could be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be that. But, that's just the way that I think about it is when you have things that, when you sit down and you're introspective and you think about the things that you want to do and the things that make you happy and make you fulfilled in life, and then you start to build something, whether it's like a business or a side hustle or just like a hobby even, for whatever, thing. I always end up going that route because that's what I did. But that's what I mean is just anything that just makes you, I don't know, want to be here more, enjoy life more or whatever, and you continue to move towards those types of things and set those little milestones. It's literally changed my life. So I try to talk about it as much as possible because I think it could help other people.
Yeah. 100%. The small wins, it's, we were just with some friends and, it's interesting. He's from Poland, Germany, and came here, met his wife in Europe, and surrounding yourself with people that have different ideas or even just culturally the way different countries work. I mean, he's an interesting person in that he talks about how people here work and compared to how he works. Super efficient, and it was interesting conversation to me that I'm thinking if I have a project at work, I'm thinking of the largest picture of this is what needs to be done. I need to implement this application to look for something. I think of that main goal, and then I try to just get get the entire plan, get it down to the nitty-gritty details. But for him, he's like, okay, that's it. That's what we need to do. How do we get started? What are the first small 5 steps that'll get us started in that path? And, he's able to accomplish a lot of work in a short period of time because he's not thinking of the most grandiose picture of what it's supposed to look like. Or, you're sitting there thinking like, oh yeah, this is going to be the coolest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
It's just getting started. And what's the first step? I mean, the first step leads to the second step. And once you think too big, it becomes way too much, and then you're less likely to start, or you're more likely to fail. If you just start small steps and you fail, at least you started. And you kind of figured out, okay, maybe this is not the path, or this is not what I want to do. So it's setting up these plans, but also not getting too crazy or specific, even though I just said SMART goals, but just too like, I have to do this at this specific point in time, and if I don't, I mean, that causes a lot of problems as well. It'll be harder to succeed.
Definitely. There's a lot of moderation, just like there is in everything, right? You know, you don't want to be too crazy, like, specific with your goals, but you also have to have some. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a balance there. And that's really interesting. It's an interesting, comparison you gave there where like, facing, a project and you have either like a grandiose view of it. And this is like the overview of everything. And then you said like your buddy is like almost like process oriented, the very first few things and everything. I think that's super important too. And something that I've had to deal with so far is you have an idea or a project or something you want to get accomplished or something you do regularly, even like a recurring type of process. Having that down makes you so much more efficient and trying to automate any of that as much as you can, whether it's in your life or your career. I think that is a super interesting thing. I'm not sure if that's anything that you kind of have to deal with at your position now, where you're kind of like, or if everything's like a one-off, but process is game changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And automation is like the key word in my job at this point. What we do is we'll have those one-off kind of things. We'll have a project, we'll have something, but every single day I follow a process. Mm-hmm. Can that process be automated through scripting, Python, etc.? Mm-hmm. If so, yeah, save yourself the time so you can focus more effort and time on the larger things. Mm-hmm. My problem is it's just, I don't have, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have the best programming skills. It wasn't kind of where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. But having that knowledge and really, I think for me to move further and to grow in my career too, scripting experience is humongous. I mean, mm-hmm. we do stuff every day that it's like, oh, man, just point, click, copy, paste, and you're like, oh my God, my eyes are bleeding.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I was in a similar type of position where like, there is some things like as humans we're just able to just literally, you get almost like your hands in a certain motion, you're just copying, pasting, you're doing all that sort of stuff just like real quick, like a machine would, or like you could simply, code something to do. And that is absolutely kind of a game changer when you develop those skills or when you're able to just apply that into whatever setting you're kind of in there. And I was going to ask you, I mean, we should probably hit on this while we're here, is what does your day-to-day look like? And I don't know if you've mentioned it yet, but like kind of what you do and your career path currently where you're at.
Okay. So right now I work at Nationwide Insurance. Mm-hmm. I'm a consultant, cyber threat intelligence analyst. And so I actually got into this position through an earlier position. I just wanted to talk about how I got here too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because Pitt gave me that one email, and that one email changed my life. I have to say.
Yeah.
A lot of folks were, hey, internship opportunities, career opportunities. I got an email once, and it said, college graduate cybersecurity program. I was like, okay, sounds pretty freaking cool. And it's talking about data loss prevention, digital forensic, attack and penetration, cybersecurity operations centers, that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, what is this email fake? I mean, the company's name was called the Columbus Collaboratory. And I'm like, that just sounds like a completely made up name. And this is for college graduates. And I get to work at seven companies in Columbus. Yeah. I get to rotate to all of their cybersecurity operations center. I'm like, okay, this is either fake or I'm going to apply for this, which I did. And so, I almost didn't make it to the internship because I didn't have a card. We're like, my sister, last minute, I asked my mom for the card. My sister's all pissed at me. I need the card. What are you doing? I'm like, then I'm just not going to go. Ended up going, got a speeding ticket on the way.
Nice.
And gave my interview, went very well. And I'm like, oh man, poor broke college student. I'm not going to have any money to pay this ticket. And this was like a freshly made startup company by 7 companies in Columbus. And I'll talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah.
He just pulled out a wad of cash and was like, all right, here's your travel expense for coming all the way here. And I'm like, well, this pays for my ticket, some beer, food on the way back. I'm like, let's go. it was amazing, but I got the job, and so I moved to Columbus right after. I had an internship at the city of Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Oh, do you want to stay?" And I'm like, you know, no, because the salary was great at first, but the experience was something that like is unprecedented. So I got to work at 7 different companies, and to list off a few of them, I'll list off all 7.
Yeah.
Nationwide Insurance,
Mhm.
so AEP, American Electric Power, just think of Duquesne Light,
Mhm.
but they run basically all of Ohio and a lot of southern states as well. Um, Cardinal Health, I mean, if you think of suppliers of pharmaceuticals and medical gloves, medical supplies, I mean, they're one of the biggest companies in the world. They're Fortune 26 right now.
Wow.
Don't hear too much about, them, but I was like, holy crap. I
Yeah.
mean, we did a tour and they're like, yeah, our gloves, just gloves.
Yeah.
We make $1 billion+ every single year just selling gloves. We're
It's
like,
crazy.
wow. Um, Ohio Health is basically the UPMC of Ohio.
Mhm.
Um, Huntington Bank, L Brands. So L Brands is the basically the overarching company over Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret, Henry Bendel, a few other
Mhm.
retailers as well, and then Battelle, which is a major research company. And so I got to go experience every single one of those and do different tasks. So nationwide, I learned digital forensics. We, you know, very very interesting place. And we'd get computers and we'd just start pulling data from them. They were able to do it on the wire, so someone's on their computer, they're like, okay, we got a Office of Associate Relations complaint. Okay, let's check out what they're doing. It was fantastic. Loved Nationwide, and that's where I'm at today.
Mhm.
A lot of the other organizations too, it just was like mind-blowing experience. But what the best part of it was is it just expanded my network and experience, I mean, through the roof immediately.
Mhm.
um, it was really cool because 6 months in, one of the kids left. There was 7 of us. One of the kids left and was making, you know, 25% more, and every one of us was like, "Ooh," and they were like, "Oh man, he left. We can't let this fall apart. This is the first rotational analyst class we've ever had. We
Yeah.
can't have this program fall." So we immediately got pay raises and stuff like that. It was awesome.
Yeah. Nice.
But it got me to Nationwide today, and again, consultant, cyber threat intelligence analyst.
Mhm.
I am like the lead phishing expert at Nationwide.
Nice.
So primarily what I do and another colleague does is we manage the phishing mailbox, if you will. So
Mhm.
everyone at Nationwide's got a button in their Outlook client. And if you click that button, it comes to me or him.
Mhm.
And we're constantly sifting through. I mean, we've got email controls that are, dropping a significant portion of emails even before they come into Nationwide. But we're looking for those needles in the haystack. I mean, Nationwide receives 400 attempts to receive 400 plus million email messages a month.
Wow.
I mean, 90+% of that's dropped just because spam and just like, this is crap email. So
Yep.
really only 20 million of what comes in is legit, quote unquote, and there's still that fine percentage of what's inside of there is bad. um and that takes us on wild goose chases every single day. Every single day is different, but the process really doesn't change. We're
Mhm.
looking at the emails, we're saying basically a binary answer. Is this bad? No, I don't care. We're going to give the user a response. We're going to say, hey, thanks for submitting this to us, but this email is actually good. We don't want this anymore. We're
Mhm.
trying to use some psychology, some positive reinforcement, like, hey, thanks, but we don't care about this, you know. And that actually dramatically reduced our numbers
Mhm.
to the amount of reports that we get from these non-malicious categories. But what we do, the other side of the question is yes, this is malicious. That's when our process starts, where we've got to look at what's inside the email. Is it credential harvesting? So you click a link and you enter your credentials. We call that credential
Mhm.
harvesting. Um, if it's bad and we see people going out to that site, we've got to reset their credentials. I mean, they are now a risk to the organization
Right.
as a foothold into our organization.
Right.
So we've got to reset those credentials. We block access to these domains. We delete these emails. So, you know, it's not typically just one email. It's usually 20, 100, 1,000 potentially. We have to do the work to actually remove those emails from the environment. And the cool and probably the best part of all of this is that it's just two of us. It's incredible for an organization of 30 plus thousand. So I'm on paternal leave right now.
Yeah.
And my buddy's handling everything. I feel bad for him. And that's where like the automation of some of these processes come in, because I mean, 90% of what we even receive is non-malicious stuff. So we spend so much time, you know, receiving stuff that we're like, I just don't even care about this, but we have to let them know. But we're held to a very high standard, because I mean, phishing is the largest threat to any organization there is. I mean, you know, you can come up with a fancy, sophisticated exploit kit 0-day looking for those kinds of stuff to get into an organization or exploit some vulnerability. But email is the communication. It is the way business is conducted. Everyone has access to email. If you get someone's email address, you can almost assume that that email will get to them, unless you're putting extremely blatant malicious stuff inside of it. So, I mean, we'll be in conversations with maybe someone in the cafeteria that received a phishing email, or we may be talking to the CEO or the CEO's admin at Nationwide, just saying, "Oh yeah, he received this email. Did you click it? Did we see it?" We've got ways to look at the network traffic and stuff, but you know, we talk to all places of the organization, so we get a lot of high visibility. That's an amazing thing, but it's also sometimes a scary thing, and there's a lot of internal politics when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
because you know, we've built a program. When I heard that we were going to get this application that would allow us to look at all of the phishing emails in a single spot, not just in like an Outlook box, and we could write custom rules to basically say, hey, this is good. We know this is good. We can automate those results. I mean, we went from an organization that didn't do a whole lot with anything that came to phishing at nationwide.com to, I think, one of the best programs in FSISAC, which is the Financial Services Sharing Center, that kind of stuff. So, you know, we've got all these different banks, Chase, Huntington, doesn't matter. All of these organizations are in this group. We're sharing threat intelligence back and forth to each other. So day to day, I respond to phishing, I share intelligence. And so sharing intelligence is saying, hey, we received these phishing emails. Here were the senders, the subjects, and the URLs that are inside of it that were malicious. This is the attachment that would have downloaded Emotet malware, which is the most prolific malware that I would say most organizations see. We're sharing those indicators internally to our own team. So we're just one piece of the nationwide cybersecurity arm. And so we're sharing that intelligence. We're saying, hey, we found this. We got to block all of this stuff. If we do see anyone access this kind of stuff, cybersecurity operations, or the SOC, Security Operations Center. I've been on paternal leave for some time. I'm
it's all
forgetting
good.
all my acronyms.
It's all good.
You know, if we see bad stuff and we've got this list of indicators are, you know, your domains, your URLs, hashes of files. Every file has a unique identifier and it's its hash. We'll send those for blocking, or we'll send them to other teams. So there's like a ton of stuff that we do, and we're kind of like that center point where we consume all of this data and we push it out to different teams. And vulnerabilities. We have an amazing vulnerability process. We collect all of them to applications that we have. Let's say IBM has some. Can't think of the example. IBM. Oh, no. Did you ever hear of WannaCry? WannaCry ransomware?
Maybe. Yeah. What
So,
is it?
when I started at Nationwide, this was 2017, one weekend, I was reading cybersecurity news, and there was a type of ransomware that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And this ransomware is called WannaCry.
Mm-hmm.
I forget why they specifically called it that, but what it did was it exploited a vulnerability that Microsoft pushed out 3 months earlier, and it was a horrible vulnerability. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like one of those ones that everyone needs to patch right away because this will be exploited
Yeah.
and it will be bad.
Yeah.
So our process, as soon as the announcements came out, we have a 7-day, hey, this is bad. We know 100. It was patched in 7 days. 3 months later, WannaCry ransomware, a wormable ransomware. You infect one computer, it starts to scan every computer that this PC might be connected to, and it will just spread to that, and then it just spreads very exponentially. And I'm reading this, I'm like, holy crap, this is bad stuff. I'm like, just started. I'm like, what are we gonna do about this? And they're like, what's the CVE? That's just the identifier for vulnerabilities. And they're like, oh, it's this. And like, oh, we patched that 3 months ago. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone's like, yeah, oh my God, this organization was, brought down by ransomware, WannaCry ransomware. I mean, it exploded.
Yeah.
But, just due to these processes that we do to collect these vulnerabilities, assume and assess, determine our risk and exposure, we patched it. And we were sitting there.
Yeah.
We went home normal time, whereas people were working through the weekends. It was awesome. I mean, we do some significant stuff. And what the organization, so our chief information security officer, he came in not too long ago. He's probably about a year and a half in, and he wants Nationwide and the cybersecurity operations center to be, he wants threat intelligence to be that key piece of how we make decisions. I'm going down massive rabbit holes.
No.
Any questions? I just love my job.
No, yeah.
Again, super fortunate, and I'm just in a great position just within the organization itself. And it's been a lot of fun to kind of see things grow and mature. His primary goal is that, hey, we need threat intelligence to tell us what the threats are and then solve the threats based on that, rather than the super lackadaisical approach of security where, oh, okay, someone's trying to hit our external web servers and they're using this vulnerability. Oh, we should probably start to look at, various ways to patch our web servers and stuff like that. Really, the objective and goal of threat intelligence is to be more proactive against the threat. So we're constantly reading articles. I've got a app on my phone, INO reader, and basically I've just captured different RSS feeds of various security sources, and every day I'll just go through here, start scrolling, and a lot of people post exactly the same stuff. I mean, Spotify reset user passwords after accidental personal information exposure. There's a lot of stuff out there that people don't even know about.
Yeah.
And your information is just out there all over the place. You get calls about extended warranties, probably because you signed up for something online. I get health insurance calls because I'm looking into getting some life insurance or something like that. You put your phone number in once and you're getting calls from so many different places. I mean, I don't live in Pittsburgh anymore. I still have a Pittsburgh area code, but I'm getting numbers from 412, 814, 717. I'm like, what the like, this is pissing me off. Like, how do you stop this kind of stuff? Yeah. And I mean, people are just buying and selling your information like crazy. I mean, that's really the concerning part. My day to day as I'm going back now is not very fluid or structured. As much as I want it to be, I'm a person of structure. I need that, but I also like not being tied down I need that level of, okay, I know what I'm doing today,
Mm-hmm.
with some kind of things that happen out of nowhere. Um, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's all good.
But it just, I need the structure, but at the same time, I can't be held. I need to let my brain be creative
Mm-hmm.
and think of new solutions to fix problems, or, hey, how do we automate, or how do we fix these kinds of processes? So um, I'm just kind of a jack of all trades, and
Yeah.
I try to be good at a lot of things. And I mean, the collaboratory is what really prepared me for that, because I didn't go into security just in vulnerabilities. If I did that, I'd know only vulnerabilities. I'd
Mm-hmm.
have to learn the next step and the next step and the next step. Since I did that early on, I have wide exposure to a lot of things, and I may not know it at a very deep level, but I understand maybe some of the core concepts, or what are the tools applications use, that kind of stuff. So one of my big things, and one of my favorite things to do, is actually OSINT. So that's, you've got different kinds of intelligence, human intelligence, signals intelligence, but there's also OSINT, which is open source intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And that is information that is available freely. I don't have to, like, let's say I was trying to get information on you. I don't have to, like, poke and try to get into your email address so I can look at your emails or something like that. This is more just basic Google searching.
Right.
And that's open source intelligence. But what's interesting is it's just like how much data is available out there. I was tasked with doing something pretty interesting, and it was like looking at our upper echelon of people at Nationwide, and what is out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a person trying to find information on someone that worked at our organization, and maybe they're looking to harass, or maybe they said a statement and someone's after them potentially.
Mm-hmm.
We've got monitors to look for keywords and say, hey, is someone posting maybe some negative or bad sentiment against one of our board members or one of our C-suite executives? We've got monitors to let us know. But if someone were to just do those searches to say, hey, I want to do something, I want to go to their house, that kind of stuff, there's just a few sources out there that exist that you could go to right now and find. I mean, one of my favorite ones, I won't say it, but it's you search them, you find them, you can get their age, addresses, relatives, people that are closely associated, phone numbers, email addresses, and that's just one source, and that's an amazing source. I'm like, in my
Yeah.
work that I was doing, I'm like, yeah, this is my number one source. I mean,
Yeah.
I just type in a name and I just get all this magic,
Yeah.
So much data is out there, and I'm just a very big kind of privacy oriented person when it comes to those kinds of things. Not like I'm trying to hide anything, but just like, there's so much data out there you could search yourself and just be like, holy crap. Like,
Yeah.
Most people are never going to be after you.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't like knowing that, my address, where I live, all of this kind of stuff is just out there freely available. You can opt out to a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say I've got a big old, there's a great source out there. There's a guy, and he just was like, hey, if you want to remove yourself from all these things, here's all the websites to do it.
Yeah.
You're getting insurance mail that's saying, hey, you could get Geico insurance for $0, whatever. There's ways you can stop that, and most people don't know that, because it's not made that apparently, or that obvious to do. Like the do not call list. I mean, I say, I don't want to. I've gotten 4 calls from you guys to take me off the list.
Yeah.
They never take me off the list, or they just call from a different number. So. But yeah, sorry, I just speak, man.
No, dude.
I don't know if we're running circles, or if this is going to be crazy for people to be like, I can't follow. But
I think
I hope.
No, dude. I think that there's a lot of good information in there. I think that's one of the things that, like I said before we went live, I wanted to make sure we touched on a lot of that, because that is A lot of things. One, there's already people, like I said, in this community, and probably even further beyond here, that first of all need that education, because I don't think it's as prevalent, or as as people don't make it as important as it is, right? Like you said, like people could have all your information.
Yeah.
Again, I struggle with that sometimes, because like just doing the things that I'm doing, I'm putting a lot of my information or my thoughts, right, stuff about me out into the world. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, I do think about that a lot. It's like, well, at some point, people are going to like just know more about me than the average other person, and just in general, it's very hard to keep all
Mm-hmm.
that type of stuff private. One, because of the time that we live in, and two, the way that I'm specifically living. So I always have that conversation with individuals like yourself when you have a better idea of what's out there and how easy it is to get information on certain people and all that stuff. And I think privacy and security go hand in hand from the things that I've seen. So it's like not making sure that you don't put things out there, but also making sure that the things that you do have out there are secure as possible, right? Like password managers and all that. I know that's probably
Yes.
relatively rudimentary, but
Yes.
but you have all that, and then the other thing is like just the stuff that you went into about specifically Nationwide. I'd like to unpack a few of those things, but
Mm-hmm.
the way in which you guys are doing things there and how you're processing things. There was a couple big things. So let me hit you with like probably the easiest one first that I had an idea. So as maybe like a token to me and like other people that might be watching that like have heard the word phishing but don't understand what it is. I pretty much understand it, and you did a decent job to outline it. Obviously, I mean like the whole the idea of people emailing you stuff and bad things being in there. The specific question that I have, that I'm honestly not 100% sure of. So obviously, the ways that you get an email into your inbox, right? Whether it's your personal email or at a whole corporation or anything, the things that you need to look out for, right, are an attachment that you potentially download and run. It's like actually like a executable or PDF or something like that. Some sort of weird thing that could download malware. Links is obviously a huge one, right? And they do it so much on even on like Facebook Messenger now, where you click on
Oh
something
yeah.
and then you have to enter your credentials. Let me ask you this question though, and you can add to if there is other things that you've seen like that people should be aware of. But is there ever a time where just you opening an email could screw you?
Um, it depends. More likely not.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is how a lot of email marketing and stuff works is they want to know if you open the email.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of what people will do is they will add a single pixel, one by one pixel.
Mm-hmm.
That pixel is going to be a picture. That picture is hosted where the email was sent from.
Mm-hmm.
So when you open the email, your email wants to pull the content inside that email. So it tries to get all the pictures, all the text, the HTML, et cetera, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. It needs to get that picture too. So it
Yep.
calls out to where that was sent from,
Mm-hmm.
or however they set it up. So um, people can track if you've opened emails, and that's very pretty rudimentary to do. Again, you just add a single white pixel,
Yep.
and that's how they do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was a time where I think like Outlook was vulnerable to like, hey, if it pulls a picture and the picture has some specific characteristics to it where it's not just a picture, it's actually some sort of content. There were times that could actually happen. But for me, I'm primarily not concerned about
Mm-hmm.
opening an email and some malicious activity actually happening.
Gotcha.
At this point in time, I can't think of anything specifically that I've seen that has had that sort of capability.
I
They can
gotcha.
track, they can see.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, CEO, definitely open email because I can see this web traffic
Right.
from, this identifier in that email. But yeah,
Yeah.
links are by far the worst that we do see. My sister owns her own business, and she just got a very interesting email,
Hmm.
and I mean it's scary. So
Yeah.
she's an artist, she
Mm-hmm.
takes her own pictures, but someone sent her an email in her like contact me kind of form, and it was like, oh, this is me, yada yada yada. I actually want to read the subject. Hopefully, I can find it really quick. I don't want to take up too much time if
it's all good.
Not here immediately.
This is important stuff.
Yeah. There it is. Okay, so form submission. You have no legal rights to use my images for her website without my consent. It's illegitimate. This is a lawsuit against my rights. You must get rid of these images now.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the thing to look out for is the links and the attachments are the bad thing. Really, the content of the emails is what will allude you to what's the red flags and what's potentially a good email. Interesting that it came through her form. But when someone's like trying to scare you and they're like, oh, I'm opening a lawsuit against you. It's almost like someone calling saying, hey, this is the Social Security Department. There's a warrant out for your arrest. Like,
yeah.
the police are just going to come to your door. They're not going to call you.
Yeah.
Unless you pay.
Microsoft is never going to call you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And exactly. The Apple iCloud ones are great.
Oh, fantastic. So she got this long email. It's not legal to use stolen images. It's so wicked. I'm pissed off. I'm going to do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and then it goes, these are the images. Check out for yourself.
Mm.
So it led to, and this is the scary part. We could talk all day, man.
Keep going, man.
This is the scary part though, is that the initial links, this link goes to sites.google.com and it's Google Drive download storage. So basically it goes to a legitimate site. It goes to Google Drive. That's fine. And what we've noticed is that a lot of phishing, it's not like the link just says, badsite.xyz or hover over. There are the ones that still do that, and it still works, which is incredible. Some of them may put the link underneath what it looks like, so it says this is a good site.com, but if you hover over the link, it's like badsite.xyz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The scary part, and what is the most concerning for us, is that a lot of these fishers, which are all over the place, we're seeing a lot coming actually from Nigeria. We've kind of tied back a lot of this activity to Nigeria. They're using legitimate services. Survey sites, Dropbox, Google Drive, Firefox Send. I think it was Firefox Send. Firefox Send shut down. They shut themselves down because they're like, oh man, our stuff is being so heavily abused right now. We have to shut down. Jeez. Amazing. So, if it's an email that you don't expect and it is meant to provoke fear or something like that, or you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this. What is this? I have to click this link. Just take that extra second, please.
Yeah.
And a lot of them go to these legit sites, which are okay to go to, but then they usually contain an attachment or they contain a link that goes to another bad site. So that's just the big thing to look out for is links. Attachments are bad. I think the email my sister got, just based on what I've seen, phishing is not specific to Nationwide. It's not specific to any financial. It's just so spray and pray.
Yep.
Based on what I've seen on hers, it would download a file and then it would run exe, and it would probably download the Gozi Earthsmith malware, which is one we've primarily seen going to those particular sites. So there's a lot. Every day is something new, but those are the big things. Is just looking out for those red flags. Her example is different because it was in a contact form. But if you're getting an email from someone you don't know, subjects are crazy, misspellings are actually not something I say. If you do see bad broken English, 100%. But you can't rely on that anymore. It really comes down to what's the content of the email. Is someone trying to scare you into doing action? That's the objective of phishing, is to scare you into action.
Yeah.
And that is interacting with the bad stuff. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
Definitely. Yeah. I've probably built about like 20 websites. I have a web development company and I have like stuff for my things and like clients and everything. And I monitor the contact forms, and I probably should do something better to like filter some shit out. But but I get that stuff all the time. I get the XYZs. I get other websites and other clients of mine in the past, and even in mail, but that's a different subject, have gotten the biggest thing that I see in my industry, we'll say, right, of that industry in web development, is people will send you something and it'll say that your domain is about to expire, and it says like, it's not really, I guess it's kind of phishing, but it's more just like being an asshole, because it's like it's probably gonna auto renew at Google Domains for $12, but like, oh yeah, just come over to us, some random company or whatever, and we'll give it to you for $200 a year or something.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so it's they're crafty, and they're jagoffs, but
big jagoffs. It's people think phishing is just that 419 scam kind of stuff. I've got a ton of money, just house some of it for a little bit. No, I mean it is concerning. I mean, Microsoft Teams is how we chat between us. Microsoft Forms, notes, all those. I forget. Those, I mean, they're sending emails that are complete identical copies of what an email would look like from Microsoft Teams when you missed a conversation.
Yep.
And I mean, it'll have pictures of people. It'll look 100% legit, and it's not.
Yeah.
We did a phishing test and got a lot of people with the first Microsoft Teams. No one was happy. But we saw one example, and we were like, this is going to be the new thing, because everyone's moving to Microsoft Teams. And so they send you emails too. Yeah, it just makes sense. And we are always trying to keep at the same level of the attacker. You try to predict what they do, and there's a lot of folks that are trying to do machine learning, predictive modeling towards trends and stuff like that for what's coming. But we try to stay on par with the threat actor, and it's tough. It's a cat and mouse game.
So you did like a white hat test, like a white hat hacker or white hat phishing test, where you sent something that was almost exactly like what a malicious person would send, but you just captured the results and said, all right, Steve, you kind of screwed this up here. Look for this next time.
Steve, you missed the red flags, man. No, that's what we do. We, our organization does quite a bit, and it's gotten so much better. I mean, it was good, but now, again, I feel like we're in the top tier of people, organizations in the financial security or financial sector when it comes to phishing. And one of those things really comes down to sending the emails that look like what an attacker would send. And we send 12 of them. Each associate receives 12 different phishing emails, internal phishing tests. And this year we were not easy. We were actually pretty mean. I felt some of them, I'm like, guys, this one's bad. Like, this is pretty rotten. Like, I don't know how I feel about this, but at the same time, the threat actor doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
like, they're gonna do it anyways. And so that's the tough part is you have to play a fine line role of how far do you go, but the threat actor, is never ever going to take a second to think of how that person's gonna feel, or oh, is this too much?
Right.
If it's too much, they're happy.
What's the concept is just extremely, I think, productive in a way, because like it teaches them through. It's just like teaching a kid how to do something where the actual consequence really isn't as bad as it could be, but you could scare them. It's like scaring them straight, like that thing where they send them to jail or whatever. So like, but like obviously different application. But walk me through that real quick. So you send them a thing, and let's say if they passed, and I'm assuming you just like they would send it to you and you'd be like, oh hey, that was great or whatever. Like maybe you say you passed the test or maybe you didn't or whatever. But the point is nothing happens there. But if they fail that, what is the give me like one of the examples. What was the consequence of you knowing that they screwed that up?
So the way we do it is a little different. I can get into two things. So let's say someone receives that phishing email and they say, this is crap. It's funny because even people on our floor fall for them. This, and it's just it happens, you know what I mean? No one is perfect, even if you're in security, but you would hope that they're the people that are more likely to not fall for them. But if someone clicks the button, they're like, okay, yeah, this is a fishing test. They will get a notification when it comes up saying, oh, this was part of our fishing awareness program. You stayed vigilant. Good job. Keep it up. Someone fails, we don't do too much with that. We just say, we give them education saying, hey, as you mentioned, this was a fishing. Thankfully, this was a test, because this could have been much worse. The organization I did work for, the collaboratory, they do work for us. So Nationwide has paid money for them to do security data analytics work for Nationwide. So they have their own set, and I've wanted to do this in our organization. Okay, someone entered their credentials. What can we do? And so folks that I've worked with in the collaboratory that were in my same group, there were 6 of us at the end. 2 of them are on the attack and penetration team. And so I'm always talking to them like, hey, when can we get to the point where we can do a phishing simulation and you guys are doing the next step? Because it's great to see, or it's great to show someone, hey, you failed. This was, good. Look out for this next time. There's a level of punishment. You don't want to be over punishment, because they're going to hate you and they don't want to deal with you. I may get fired, probably not, but who knows? Getting a little slap on the wrist is not enough. I think it's important to show, hey, because you did this, our attack and penetration team was able to do all of this just as a result of having credentials to your account. The collaboratory does those kinds of tests against us, and again, it's kudos to the program we've set up. Someone will send one, and then we'll get a few of them, and we'll be like, oh, hold up, like, this is a phishing campaign. This is like ultra specific. They'll be like, oh, Columbus Crew tickets, who just won the MLS Cup. But the Columbus Crew soccer tickets, and people are like, yeah, I love the Crew. Crew is Columbus. This feels legitimate. You just got to go to this link and enter your credentials. They will do the additional work, and it just takes a single set of credentials or someone to download a single piece of malware to really kickstart bad stuff happening in your organization. So we push and say, hey, it's up to everybody. Just because you fell for it this one time, slap on the wrist, that's bad. Don't fall for it again. That one person could lead to a lot of potential bad in the organization, depending on where they're at too. I mean, if they had administrative privileges on their assets, and it was a developer who codes on specific applications which are like primary to Nationwide and how we conduct business, you have access to that account, administrative privileges, and you have access to the code base. I mean, these people could just inject code, a small bit of code, steal all data, exfiltrate data, implant their own malware, so they just start infecting everyone. I mean, it's insane. It's scary.
Yeah, no, certainly. Yeah,
No,
it's all good. I was just gonna say, it's a real concern. I think it's something that, like I said earlier, it's something a lot of people, I think, kind of take for granted. And I hate to see it, but at the same time, I think what you guys are doing with those tests is really, like a good thing. And I had one question I wanted you to kind of clarify. So you worked at the almost like the little hub that works for what's a collaboratory? So
collaboratory.
Yeah. So
they're called Covail now.
Gotcha.
Covail.
Gotcha. So you worked there, and they worked for like different companies. So you were able to like kind of like bop around and like do different security stuff for different companies. And then now you just work for Nationwide. How does that all transpire?
So what we were essentially contracted to do was to work for the collaboratory, but as contractors for these other organizations. A lot of folks called us interns. It kind of made me mad, but I was like, hey, whatever. I'm getting amazing experience. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it was a 2-year program. we'd spend 3 months at an organization, come back to the collaboratory for 2 weeks, and then just do that process for the rest of the way. So it was nice. Those in between weeks, we would do personal development, or we would do specific things. Like we wrote a white paper on cloud access security brokers. Doesn't really matter too much, but those 2 weeks were nice to just hang out, get with our buddies. I mean, I still talk to just about all of the people I worked with. I mean, we had an amazing experience, and it skyrocketed our careers in security very quick. Mm-hmm. But at the very end, really the intention of the entire program was, hey, work at these companies, get a ton of experience, and the realistic and pretty much the expectation is that these companies are going to have jobs for you at the end, so you can work there full time.
Gotcha.
So it was pretty sweet. We had mentors from each of the companies. So I started at Nationwide. I got a mentor who worked at Nationwide. Awesome guy, still works there. And I mean, super helpful just for personal development, but also career development. Soft skills was his biggest thing. I mean, you can do all the technical, know all that stuff as much as you can, but if you can't talk and also, tell the story of what you're doing, a lot of people won't understand that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand the technical bits, but my manager, his leadership, they're going to just be like, does this do this? I know that this is a requirement maybe from compliance, or this is just the new cool thing on the block, or this would just help us. You have to be able to tell that story. So that mentorship was very crucial. But there was 2 jobs available at Nationwide at the end of the program. One of them was attack and penetration, and one was in threat intelligence. And I had offers from some of the companies, and one was really, really wanting me. And I went to my mentor and I said, hey, that threat intelligence job looks pretty cool. He's like, you want it? I'm like, yeah, I want it. He asked me how much I wanted. Said how much I wanted. Okay, we can do that. And it was amazing. I mean, it just goes, I just had an amazing opportunity. And I took advantage of it as much as I could, mm-hmm. to learn as much as I could, and to just propel myself to where I'm at today. I'm not done. There's still projections and places I want to go. Still trying to formulate that out, of course. Yeah. Do you go to leadership, that kind of stuff? But yeah, I just had an amazing experience, and super fortunate I moved to Columbus for this job. Mm-hmm. I met a lot of awesome people. My network in Columbus and security is quite big. I met my wife. There's a ton of positives to this move, and really I'm just fortunate and glad I took it and just was provided that opportunity. So always got to take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like it's paid off. It's paid dividends. And speaking of dividends, we've talked about it a little bit here, but finance and that whole aspect of how we got connected and just your life in general. You've gone through a lot of different things. Obviously, you've moved out to Columbus from Pittsburgh. You have a family now. You have a home. Congratulations on the new little one.
Thank you.
6
weeks today.
There you go. So lots of stuff going on there, and I think it's an interesting topic. One, because everybody has to deal with it, right? Money is like a necessary evil to some. I mean, I like money. I think a lot of people like money, but a lot of times it can be very similar to almost like goals in a way. I think depending on your mindset on it and your outlook on it, it can kind of mess with you depending if you let it. And maybe we share that, but it's an interesting thing. And again, all the stuff that we've talked to at this point, right? College, moving, starting a family, like all that sort of stuff weighs heavily on it. Not only, and it can be, most of the time, especially like college and things, it can definitely put a burden on some things because it tends to slow you down depending on if you made a decision to go and you get a degree that isn't really keeping up with, the growth of your loans and stuff like that. So everybody's situation is different, but we had a pretty extensive conversation, like we alluded to earlier, on Instagram, and
Mm-hmm.
talking about like your financial journey and how it's kind of similar to mine, and just like I think a lot of other people. Obviously, we're not the only people that watch Dave
Yeah,
Ramsey, right?
of
So
course.
if you want to kind of give maybe some background on like what you've learned and kind of like your journey through that so far, and we can kind of pick apart some pieces from that, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Looking forward to talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I I think back to college and, you know, poor college kids. I didn't have a credit card. That was one thing my parents did not want me to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful for that, because chances are I might have gone into some credit card debt as a result. I had a debit card my entire way, all the
Mm-hmm.
way until probably even 2 years into living into Columbus. Um, but, I'm just constantly overdrafting. I want to go down to, there's a Southside Deli. I lived in
Yeah.
the Southside Slopes, and that place was so good. Sandwiches were fantastic, and they always had like a good craft beer selection. So it was like, you start graduating your tastes. At least I just enjoy craft beer, so I just start spending a lot of money for that stuff, and I'm
Right.
like overdrafting my account, that kind of stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god. And it didn't really. I would say that money didn't really hit me and really figuring out my situation until I honestly met my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were dating 5 months at that point in time. We did a trip to Scotland, and I just kind of knew. I was like, yeah, this is my girl, man. Like
Yeah.
this is the one.
Yeah.
And so something hit where I just was like, okay. Beginning of that year, I was getting close to January, or yeah, I was getting to January, and this would have been 2018, going into 2018. No, going into 2019. Sorry, the years are confusing me. And so I sat down and just was like, man, you need to figure out your finances and kind of, what is going to build our future together. How are we going to do this together? You just need to figure out what's going on. So up until that point, I mean, I had student loans, and then going in March of 2017, my car broke down, and I kind of was like, oh yeah. When I was about to move to Columbus, I was like, oh, I'm making money, I'm gonna buy a car, and I didn't buy a car, thankfully. Not to say like I couldn't pay for it, but at the same time, it's just, I think once people start making money, they think they can start spending money as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is I don't want to say a mistake. I mean, you're making money, spend your money, but within some reason. Just because you got a job and you're making X amount, that doesn't mean that you should just start buying cars and buying all of these big purchases. Because I'm an adult now. I've got the big boy, big girl job. I can buy a car now because of this. I want to live in a place that's super expensive. I mean, I moved into Columbus with a roommate. And then at one point we had 3 roommates. It was me and 2 others. And that was an awesome time, was like saving quite a bit of money because rent was now only a third rather than a half. And my car broke down, and I just was like, yeah, okay. When I graduated, got my job, I wanted a Subaru BRZ. And I was like, I'm getting me a Subaru BRZ. and so I love this car. I still have it. But I mean, at this moment now, especially with a kid, it's not a very practical car.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a very realistic car. But I could have got something much cheaper. And would it? It's just, what weight do you put the happiness of that object to the money you're spending to it? I think I just really wanted it, and I remember signing the papers, and I just was like, oh my god, like I'm signing a loan, and they're like, do you have good credit? I'm like, yeah, I've got good credit. I just had student loans. I didn't have any credit cards or any of these things. So I mean, I still have the original loan. I didn't refinance, but it 6.79%. It's not awful, but it's definitely high.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember signing those papers, and I just was like, holy shit. Like, I
Yeah.
was up in Toledo. I had to drive 2 hours to go see the
Uh,
car. I drove it, was like, yeah, this car's perfect. I didn't even negotiate down.
yeah.
I definitely could have had a few dollars, but he played some tricks on me. Um,
Bastard.
because he's like, oh yeah, a guy came in earlier. Yeah, he's like, a guy came in earlier, and he was offering some money, and it was too low. And so he kept like pushing this guy who may not have even existed. I'm sure he didn't. I don't know. And he was just saying, oh yeah, he kept trying to offer less money, and it made it sound like, oh, don't offer less money, we won't give it to you.
Yeah.
I I fell for it. But
Yeah.
so I got to, so I had the car loan, and man, I was so scared writing those papers. And I remember I had to drive home. I didn't take the car. I had it delivered to Columbus, and I just remember like, what the hell did I just do? Like, I called him the next day. Like, I had like immediate buyer's remorse, but then I justified it over time. But so going into 2019, I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna marry this girl. What do my finances look like? I mean, I was barely tracking it, didn't know what it looked like. I mean, I had an idea, and I knew kind of where I was at, but I really sat down 2019 and said, okay, what does this all look like? So this book, it says web programming on it. This was from Pitt. I ripped out all those pages because I was like, oh man, that was just a nightmare. And every single month, I just was listening to a ton of podcasts at that point. Like, I just was like, okay, you need to start listening. You need to start really versing yourself in what this looks like and how to make yourself successful, and just taking control of your finances. Like, I went through a breakup, and then I just was like, I just want to buy cool, good ass beer all the time. And there's a brewery that's got a pretty silly name, but it's called Hoof Hearted, and they make amazing stuff. It's still my favorite brewery. I mean, crazy, amazing stuff. But a 4-pack, 16-ounce cans could cost $20, $22. There was a point in time I was going at these releases, and I'm like, you could get 2 beers, three 4-packs. And I'm walking out like, oh yeah, I got the latest Hoof-Hearted beers. Like, who wants them? And I spray people. But I'm walking out of this place spending $120 on beer, and I'm like, yeah, let's go. But what was cool is I started trading people, and I, was sending it to people. I've sent beer to Maine and Louisiana and Colorado, so I could try different beers and stuff like that. It was a great time. I mean, It was like, I want to go to some places to see the cities and stuff like that, but also like, oh, this is where down in Tennessee, this is where Bearded Iris is at. Like, I'm going to go to Bearded Iris. It's amazing stuff. I sat down, was on Mint, checked my spending, and it was like, just that year, one brewery, Hoof-Hearted. I sat there and was like, I spent like $1,200, $1,500 at one brewery. And that's just one.
Yeah.
Not to mention the shipping that cost. It was absurd. So I sat down and said, okay, dude, you need to change some shit here. So I got my notebook and listened to a lot of people, and some people were like, oh, monthly, write down your net worth. And I was like, okay. Because a lot of people, what they say is they're like, okay, oh, I make $75,000. I make $100,000. And they put the weight of their success to their salary amount. But I think that's somewhat of a fundamental mistake, because, okay, you make that much. You show that you make that much, but how much are you saving at the end of the month? What is your net worth? Your net worth is a true measure, or a better measure of your success with money. So someone, I don't know if it was Dave Ramsey or someone, but someone said, like, don't ask someone how much they make, ask them how much their net worth is. And I'm sure half the people will probably be like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And some people might know, and, just the amount of debt listing your assets, how much money you've got, and then comparing it to your debts. And that number at the end, positive or negative,
Yeah.
that's your net worth. So most folks out of college are negative because, you know, they haven't had time to build assets, their 401ks, cars, house, whatever. And if you went to college, you got student loans. So chances are you're probably negative. And I definitely was negative at some point, but I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the start of 2019. So, you know, this is my first notebook entry.
Nice.
January 3rd, 2019. I'm taking control of my finances and whatever. You know, I write a bunch of shit. And, you know, I looked and listed all my debts, and I'm like, holy crap. I don't know if I need to say specific amounts of student loan debts and stuff like that. But, you know, it was in the multiple tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And the car that I just bought was, you know, almost, you know, 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at my net worth and I'm like, whoa, like at the end of the day, I'm worth this amount. It was positive, which is again, a fortunate circumstance, but like, man, that's a small number, man, you know? So, and that's just what it's been for me is just a constant deliberate attempt to just look at that net worth and see it grow month to month. And now I'm December. So once this month finishes, that'll be 2 years of me tracking it. And I think it's just amazing to kind of track your growth. I mean, there's a lot of apps out there that do it. I mean, I use one too, Personal Capital. So I really don't need to do this part anymore, but because I've got apps to do it. But I think for me, writing this stuff down and seeing, oh, this is how much debt you got. I think to me, writing stuff on paper is much more impactful than writing something down on the computer or seeing something on an app or something like that. So that was the big thing for me, was just checking that net worth. And I just like that entire year, I just tried to verse myself in finance topics. You know, what does this look like? How much are you saving? Are you, and check like the percent changes from those, how much? Yeah. So what really happened then was we got engaged in August. We moved into her house. I moved into her house. So we live in Columbus. It's a duplex. They own both sides. And so I say it's not just us living in this place. It's also her sister and her sister's husband. And when I did first move in here, it was also her brother and her brother's wife. And it was a madhouse. But at that point in time, when I first moved in, I mean, they paid their mortgage off. So it was like no house payment. It took some time to get to that point, but so it was like really just had that opportunity of living even less without roommates. You know, they also have an asset too, but living here and not having to pay rent, I was like, okay, well, this is my opportunity not to spend more money because I don't have this payment like I used to when I was living closer to campus, Ohio State campus. I have the opportunity to just really decimate debt, and that was my plan. Yeah. I listened to a lot of Dave Ramsey. I eventually read the book Total Money Makeover. It was my first true financial book that I read. In December, I actually, on my time hop, I just got some screenshots because I was just taking pictures. We were on a flight to Denver, and I just, my fiance at the time, I was like taking pictures. I'm like, holy crap. Like, he's saying you put $625 in a Roth IRA for 30 years, it's going to be worth like $7 million. I'm like, what? We can do this? And, I mean, that's assuming a 12% return, which I'm sometimes like, I don't know about that, but it just was that, oh shit, like we could do this and we could retire hopefully early. I mean, that's a goal of mine is financial independence early. but it just was like, okay, it's time to do this. Like January, I remember that day. I think it was January 3rd of 2020. I was sitting at the table and she was vacuuming and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, you're going to do this. Like I had savings. And I put like, 75% of my savings. So I read the book and was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Baby step one, $1,000 in the savings account, emergency fund. I thought that 1,000 was just a little too less for me. So I had a few thousand, but, I just was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I remember going on Navient, my student loans. I said, I'm going after my student loans. Like this year, my student loans are gone. I didn't know, I think I calculated it was going to be a year and a half to pay off the student loans and the car. So it's like, okay, it's just a slow game. I mean, it's going to take time. All of this takes time. And so I sat down and man, that first morning, I just like threw down quite a few thousand. It was just like, I was shaking. I'm like, I've never put that much money down to something. And I was like, holy shit. Like, is this okay? Is this what I was supposed to do? And I'm like, no, this is planned. You're doing it. And this is how it's going to be. And it just took off after that. I mean, and then COVID happened. And so, was able to, not expenses such as driving to work. So gas, food at work, parking. I mean, that was a few extra $100 that I spent not even thinking, that was just staying in my pocket. And I was like, yeah, that's going to debt. So the timeline was crazy. I just was like, yeah, student loan debt's gone. I want to pay this off as soon as possible. And so January threw down the lump sum. February was just a normal payment. March is when I get my when I get a bonus and I raise. So tax refund. All three of those things I did not keep for myself at all. That was a hard thing to do. I remember tax returns in years past. I'm like, I bought a bike. And I was like, yeah. And I mean, I rode that bike from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. I've done a lot of awesome things on that bike. But this year was like, no, that's not what I'm doing. Like, I want to enjoy myself, but at the same time, we need to cancel out this debt to really push and move forward. And then we found out we were pregnant, and that was like a big old shock. I'm like, whoa, like I'm gonna be a dad. I just constant conversations with my wife about it too. And our financial talk, she definitely is like, oh my gosh, you need a friend to talk to. She's in on the conversations, but at the same time, it's like, her Myers-Briggs test, she's an adventurer. And if you read one of the, I don't know, strength or weakness or something like that, it was like, adventurers do not like have set plans for retirement and financial goals and stuff like that. And she does have goals, of course, but at the same time, it was like, oh my gosh, like we're polar opposites when it comes to this stuff. And so we found out we're pregnant. I'm like, man, do I go down this path of paying everything off, or do I just save all of my money? Probably would have been better to just invest, because I mean, everything's, going way back up. But we decided, like, no, keep on keeping on. Like, you're doing this process. She has money saved. So we're like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And just from that lump sum of from my savings, and then going into March with tax refund and with tax refund, bonus and increases in salary. I mean, all of that went to debt. I did not do a single thing with that money except put it to debt. And that was a hard thing. And it would be a hard thing for a lot of folks to do. Again, I was fortunate to keep a job. So I am fortunate out the ass, and I'm so appreciative of just where I am in my life, just all the opportunities I've been given. Again, I will always and forever truly stay grateful for where I'm at.
One quick thing about that though,
Yeah.
because it's always an important thing to think about. I think it's important to focus on all the blessings that you have, obviously, and all the fortunateness. But I think sometimes when we say that, and when just not just you or I, but anybody says that, we have to realize that like the thing you just said before that, like it wasn't
Yeah.
easy. It wasn't
Yeah.
easy for you to do that. You still had to work hard and get to where you
Hmm.
were at. You still had to make the conscientious decision to say, hey, I'm not going to buy a bike, or I'm not going to buy something else this year. I'm going to put this towards debt because I know, moving forward, this is going to be the better thing for myself, my family, and all that. So I don't know. I just think, again, it's important to say, it's important to emphasize both because, you know, we're, all of us are blessed in different ways, some more than others, but we all have to work hard most of the time to get to where we want to do, and make difficult decisions. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. 100%. I mean, it is what you do.
yeah,
There's luck, there's opportunity, there's all these things involved, but for sure, it's how you take advantage or what you do to get you in that situation. There's
yeah,
so many choices, and
definitely.
you know, fortunate the opportunities and the choices I've taken, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I just kept slugging away, and June 4th was I paid off all my student loans, man. That
There
was
we go.
like one of the greatest days. It was like, holy crap. It just shows that if you set your mind down to something and you just say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be aggressive about it, and there's going to be little to no, even, with the baby, and thankfully, my wife also was kind of like, hey, just keep going down the path. Um, was able to do it. I'm like, holy crap. I mean, my student loans, my minimum payments, I mean, I upped them a little bit, but it was like $760 a month. I was like, holy shit. And there's people in crazier situations than me, and
Hmm.
I just, it's amazing where some people are at. But then it was like right after that, I wanted to pay the car off, but it started to get a little too close to baby time. So I was
Hmm.
like, oh man. So saved emergency fund for about 5 to 6 months, and then actually at the end of December, the car should be paid off. So
Nice.
it's been an awesome year. I mean, even with the circumstances, we would have gone on many other trips. I wouldn't be on this trajectory, I guess, if it weren't for having to quarantine and stay at home and making travel impossible. Because we were going to go to Peru in May, but that was canceled, and we were going to do a bunch of stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was unfortunate. But so kind of the next steps for me is just save for retirement. We've got her car that's on a lease right now. It'd be awesome to be able to pay that in cash at the end of August. But I mean, there's so many things going on now. I mean,
Hmm.
my baby's 6 weeks old, and I, we're still trying to figure all
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got married in October, baby less than a month later, and then we're here now, and it's just a figuring everything out. I mean,
Hmm.
how do you pay for travel? How do you pay for all of this stuff? And I think I stress out about this stuff quite often, but it's something that just needs to be planned, and you set yourself up, you work together, and you just say, hey, what are our goals, what are our plans? Okay, we want to travel this much, how much do we expect that to cost? I think there's just a lot of it's all planning.
Hmm.
You have to plan to set yourself up for success,
Hmm.
understand what your budgets are. I mean, if more is going out than it's coming in, you're on a bad trajectory. Just understanding what your expenses are and seeing them. I have an app where I use every dollar. I used to use a different one.
Hmm.
Every dollar is just Dave Ramsey's
Hmm.
budget kind of envelope system. Write down every single expense that I have. I didn't put in yesterday's, but um, it's just constant, deliberate action. That's really what it comes down to.
Yep.
So I spoke a lot there.
No, no, no. It's all great stuff, man. And that's your journey. I mean, that's your story so far, and I think there's a lot of good takeaways from it. And yeah, it's just there's so many lessons, like you said, and it's all about planning and everything. And one thing that I wanted to say there was the silver linings of COVID. I mean, like it's
Yep.
been a very interesting time, and there's been a lot going on, but I've heard on more than one occasion, in this case specifically, but with other people as well, yeah, we've had to stay inside and stuff like that. And like whatever you think about the whole situation, specifically to it, health wise, like all the stuff that crazy stuff has gone on in 2020. We just want to leave it behind us. But there has been a lot of good things, I think, that people have done in their lives, whether they did it on purpose or accidental or like whatever it is. And I know a lot of people that have gotten to like fitness. I know a lot of people that have, like they decided to take that time and make it productive in that manner. For yourself, like you said, maybe you would have gone on some more trips. Of course, obviously nobody likes to cancel stuff. We had to cancel a cruise and things like that, right? But at the same time, it was an interesting day. It was an interesting time to kind of try to get yourself in order, whether it was, again, fitness or financially. I think that it definitely has some benefits. So I'm happy to hear that you did. I would say you definitely benefited from that, because now looking forward, again, this is the hallmark of finances. As you continue to clean up your act now, we'll say, not just you specifically, anyone, like, more in the closer sense, like when you get rid of debt, and when you have a good job, and when you have, you build a family, and you do all these things to try to gain assets and gain, just increase your net worth now, I mean, life is just going to be better in the future. Like, it's exactly the thing you said earlier, where you put like $600 away, monthly, or like, throughout the year for a Roth. And then you look at that Dave Ramsey Roth IRA calculator, and it's like, what the hell? It's like, it's like $3 million. It's like compound interest is amazing. Like it's ridiculous when you actually see how it just compounds like that. And you just gotta believe in it, and you gotta keep doing it. And money isn't like the root of all being or anything like that, but it is something that's real, and I love having these conversations, because I think that more people would benefit if they thought like this, and planning and just budgeting and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't be number one, but it definitely assures comfortability, security. I mean, that's really the big thing there is that, we have a house over our head, and we have those basic needs covered, and we're able to do other things as well. Because that's just the amount of debt that people are in. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of everyone's discipline and attitude towards that. And I mean, I'm not saying everyone should follow what I did, but now I'm like, okay, cool. I'm almost out of that rat race there, and now it's time to build.
Right.
And that's a very exciting part. There's like so many different paths you can go. Like rereal estate is definitely one. Different investments, those kinds of things. But still figuring that out. I mean, I don't have a solid plan, but I do have an idea of where I'd like to go.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, well, as long as you continue to do the things you're doing, man, it's going to be up from here. And it's the same thing for everyone, no matter where you're at. Just like, you shouldn't compare yourself really to other people. You should always just compare yourself to that number that you have. And we kind of went, I don't know if we went in reverse order, but like the topics that we've covered here so far are very interesting, because what we're talking about here is finance in the sense of like, the next piece of your life after like college and things, right? So it's a weird thing in our society where sometimes we have to like dig ourselves into a hole in order to like spring ourselves forward, in a sense, with the college thing. And that's, again, why I always ask that, because with just the way that times are changing, it's always interested to get perspectives on it. But it really seems like when you do it the right way, it does have some benefits, and you continue to move forward, and you high salary, and you just continue to focus on paying out of those debts and things like that. And then moving forward, it's like you said, just don't spend money frivolously on all sorts of stuff, because you don't want to dive back into that rut, into that hole. And Dave Ramsey is always funny, because I know we talked about it a little bit on Instagram, like with some of the way that the ways that he says to do things are so targeted to a specific audience, because it's like, just like, baby steps, and it's such a conservative financial approach that it's like, don't use credit cards, right? So I understand what he's doing there, but at the same time, I think that he kind of does some at certain level. No disrespect to Dave Ramsey, but at a certain level, I think it would do you or I or anybody, like you would do yourself an extreme service to recognize that, okay, am I disciplined enough to use a credit card? And if you can use a credit card and pay it off every month and not overspend like that, then you're gonna, in the long haul, I mean, we can go into it more, or we can, gloss over or whatever. Like, the amount of money that you save with like cash back on credit cards is unbelievable, as long as you're not an idiot with them. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we combine finances, and
Yep.
it's good. She's taking some time off as well. And just that initial seeing charges come on that I didn't spend, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like so used to my spending, and it's just super interesting just the way it all works. But my bank, I've got two cards. One is a 1.5% back, and they don't sell it anymore because they got a different one.
Yep.
Since I had it, they haven't gotten rid of it for me.
Yep.
So it's just funny. I've got the blue card and the green card, and the blue card is used when it's not at a gas station, at a grocery store, or a restaurant. Everything else goes on the blue card. And so she'll like come up like, do I use? And even before she says it, I'm like, you use the blue card. And yeah, man, we definitely paid our honeymoon. It was, not what we were planning it to be.
Yeah.
But we were at a lake. I'm forgetting everything. It's just an hour northwest of Pittsburgh or Columbus, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna all this money, like we got cash back, like we're balling out on meals, man. Like, we're gonna do this right, So, just those simple things, man. It's just like you have to stay disciplined. I mean, I look at I got PNC. I look at it every day. If I see a balance on the cards, I'm paying it. Because the one thing that I liked about having a debit card was that money came out immediately, and I would see it on the account. What was tough for me to go into a credit card, and I got credit cards after I bought my car because I'm like, oh shit, like I've got no accounts, and looking at my score, I'm like, it wasn't horrible, but at the same time, it was like, all right, I need to build this too. So I've got a few credit cards and other things here and there. I don't know where it's going.
Credit cards with your car and the you were gonna say I knew exactly.
Yeah, balances. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I liked knowing how much was in my account.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of replicated that now by paying it off every day. And so the balance is always paid. And it's reflected on my checking account too.
Yep.
And that's important for me because I need to see how much is there and how much is left. This truly is. This is what's left because you just paid your credit card. So, it is that discipline. I mean, it just one big purchase is all it takes for you to start going down a financial rabbit hole potentially. So, just trying to be safe, trying to be smart. But it also comes at a consequence sometimes too, because, I'm like, okay, I've got this plan and I'm hardcore set on this plan. Now that we're combined, sometimes it's a little difficult because I'm like, I need to let up a little bit. And I've been so focused on just, this is the goal, Mandalorian, this is the way, like, I gotta go, like, this is it. This has been a very interesting time for me in growth and just learning, both as being a husband, now a dad, and managing the household too. Such a lot of learning. I bet you if we were on a call like this 6 months or something from now, I'm sure my world would be completely different. So, I mean, not like in a bad financial sense, but just the way I do things. Because it's check comes in and I've got my bill account. I know how much I'm paying in bills that month. It's going right directly to there. And I have X amount that I know should be in my checking and in the spending. Everything else goes to savings. I'm sure that'll probably change coming up here soon. Just either more strict or hey, this is the amount that's going in, or, maybe I'm loosening up a little bit, not saving as much so we can not actually enjoy ourselves, but be able to enjoy ourselves without being like, oh man, I'm pinching pennies so I can pay off debt, that kind of stuff. So
Well, that's part of evolving, man. I mean, you're going through some serious changes. This is, this is a big part of your life, right? So, no, kudos to everything you've done so far. And I know that when we have you back on the show in 6 months or so, it's it's gonna be definitely a trend in the positive direction. I'm sure it might be different, like you said, but that's kind of goes back to what we talked about before, man. You're setting goals, you're planning and everything like that, but you honestly don't know. None of us know what's going to happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. So you might get might have to relocate again for a job that pays twice as much or something crazy, right? It's everything is it's planned, but it's also, and a big part of that is being able to adapt and evolve with the times, I think. So yeah. I want to hit this topic here. I know we've been talking for a while. I could continue to talk all day. It's totally up to you. But I want to hit this topic that we mentioned here. You brought it up at least once, I think, already, and it is your bagpiping experience and everything that you've done with that. And I don't know a better way to frame it, but I think that, as we mentioned before we went live, I want you to kind of go into it, because I think that there's more to it than just like a musical instrument, right? It's played a bigger part in your life, and like you said, you've made a little bit of sort of like a side hustle to a certain degree off of it. So it's interesting, and I just take it away. Just tell me kind of like the whole story behind it.
Yeah, I'll just start from the beginning. So my dad is a city of Pittsburgh fireman, and if you go to any major city in the United States, there's almost always going to be a fireman band, a police band, or they're both combined. They'll do funerals for, the services and stuff like that. And my dad was actually one of the founders of the Pittsburgh Firemen's Band. And so I can still remember, I don't know how old I was when he first started, but I do remember just like he'd be playing in the living room, and anyone that's like just starting to play the bagpipes, you don't go directly to it. There's a whole thing before that. No one's good. It sounds like shit. You're squeaking. It's like, until when people say, oh, bagpipes sound like a dying cat or something like that, it's because they have not heard a good bagpiper. They've heard someone that, just hasn't had the best tuition instruction, or just that's just how it is. It's and so I just remember being like, Dad, cut that out. And I probably was like 6 or 7 at that time. And so every single year, St. Patty's Day parade, I mean, they'd always be marching in it, and then they'd play at the Elks Club in the North Side. I think that's changed since then, but they would play in the Elks Club. And I just always remember going to the Elks Club. They always had those like pull lottery tickets where you're like, oh yeah, and they would put on a show for probably like 30 minutes to an hour or something like that. And I just remember them being on the stage, and I was kind of like looking up and listening. I'm like, man, that's actually pretty sweet. Like, I asked my dad after that day, I was like, hey Dad, I think it'd be cool to learn how to play. And he's like, you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And so he taught me from scratch. And it is not easy. This is actually what you learn on. This is the chanter here. And so you get the spacing of the fingers, and you learn all the notes. And you do what every person learning an instrument does. Every good boy does fine face, just to learn where the music's at. So that took some time. And I learned from my dad at first, and then I learned from a guy who was actually at CMU going for his music degree in bagpiping. They have a bagpiping degree at Carnegie Mellon. And I learned from him for a while. And I was still young. I was getting it, and I was progressing, but he really got me started. My dad was a huge in the just kind of the foundationals, and then lyric really pushed me further to get bigger tunes and learning other tunes. And then he left to work in Houston, and he said, hey, you need to learn from Jimmy McIntosh. And so Jimmy McIntosh is when I met him, I was probably in fourth, fifth, fifth grade. I think I was kind of getting my timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he was 79 years old.
Jeez.
I've he's still kicking it. He's 95 now.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yep, still playing tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started with Jimmy, and Jimmy, I'm just learning bagpipes. I don't know who Jimmy is, that kind of stuff. But man, Jimmy is like one of the best people in the world. When he was his kind of just quick history, he didn't even want to play bagpipes. He said, his dad came in and said, "Hey, a guy coming in, he's teaching you bagpipes." And that was just kind of the start of the story. He just started learning from there and joined the British military. I mean, he played in World War II, and then he came back, and then he learned from these two guys in Balmoral Castle. So this castle is famous because the Queen stays in Balmoral Castle in the summertime, August timeframe. She's there for a month. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
She's always there. There's a funny story about that. But
Mm-hmm.
he learned from two guys there. They called them the Bobs of Balmoral. And their lineage of teaching goes back to these people that goes to the 1600s or something like that. And so he learned this particular style of music, Pibroch, and it just rose him to fame. And so he won the gold medals. There's 2 gold medals, and they're Pibroch. Pibroch is classical music, so very long, 12, sometimes even 20-minute tunes individually. Mm-hmm. And he won the 2 gold medals, and so those are a big deal in itself. And then there's a competition called the Glenfiddich. And so the first year they ever had the Glenfiddich, it is the top 10 best bagpipers in the entire world, individual bagpipers. And the first year they ever had it, he was the winner. And so, man, he's amazing guy. I've learned so much from him. Anytime anyone asks, like, "Hey, who's your role model?" that kind of stuff, it's like, my dad's one of my role models, but Jimmy McIntosh, without question. His thing is keeping humble is one of the big things. No matter how life is going, how things are going, continue to stay humble. Because if you start to become arrogant and stuff like that, that's not good. It's just not good to be arrogant.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Staying humble from where you came from. So I learned from Jimmy for a while, and it just was like, that's when I got it. When Jimmy was teaching me, I just got it. And I mean, it just really was picking up tunes. My first ever competition, I was just talking about this story. He paid for my entry to the competition. It was in Bridgeport, West Virginia. I was a wee chap, and he was like, "Okay, I'll pay for it. It's $20 or something like that." And so we went down. I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna play my tunes. At that age, it's like I didn't have any nerves or anything like that. I was like, I'm just gonna play, And I got a second in my Pibroch event, and got first in the 2-4 event. And so there's 3 events. Regardless, I won Piper of the Day at my first ever competition.
Nice.
And that was the first year they ever did this like best young Piper thing, and it was like this big trophy.
Yeah.
And I got that as a result too. And I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. It's just kind of already feeling that little bit of success, and that just kind of drove me to keep on going. And so I've played since then. I'm a professional now, so that first competition is grade 4 junior, goes all the way to grade 1, and then there's professional. So I'm Eastern United States Pipe Band Association. I'm a professional bagpiper. When I moved to Columbus, that was like my best year. I was grade 1. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna kick ass this year. I just want to do good and just do the best I could. And so I was invited to a competition in Hamilton, Ontario, and it's called the George Sheriff. And the George Sheriff is the top 10 amateur bagpipers in North America, so Canada and the United States. And I played the first event. it was nerves. I had nerves, and so I was missing some notes and doing some dumb shit.
Mhm.
But then I just kind of came around. I was like, dude, just play. And so the next event was the P Rock, and I just remember playing, and I just was like, holy crap, this is like the best my instrument has ever sounded. I mean, it stayed rock steady the entire time. Bagpipes are disgustingly finicky environment, a little bit too much moisture and overplaying, your instrument's crap. It's insane.
Hmm.
And then I played my MSR, March Strass Band Reel, and found out at the end I got 2 seconds. So I got a second in the P Rock and second in the MSR. And I placed third overall. I was like close to almost winning the entire thing, but that was just an amazing moment there. And yeah, just competing too in bands. So 2013 and 2014, I competed with a band in Toronto, in Canada, and the 70th Fraser Highlanders, and they're a grade 1 band, which is the highest level of band play. And that was during college, man, and that was a wild ass time. So the band was on like a cold streak for many years, and then the year I joined was the first year they won a contest in maybe 3 years or something like that.
Oh,
and it was in Kincardine, Ontario. And man, that was like one of the wildest nights of my life. It was like so memorable. But like we won a competition. It was my first win ever in grade 1. It was like peak. It was a peak day for me.
Yeah.
And we continued to do exceptionally well for the rest of the year and the next year. And the next year we went to Scotland. There's the World Pipe Band Championships. And we competed, got through to the finals, which was a big deal. And we placed 11th. So our band was 11th in the world. So a lot of fun stuff. I mean, my best man at my wedding is the guy that beat me in the P-Brock in my first ever competition. We're friends, best friends to this day. I mean, it's had me meet so many people. And, I'm just, again, truly thankful for the experience just to have that as part of my identity. I remember, I made tough decisions, and I remember Lila Gabriel, her Sweet 16 birthday party was in the Gateway Clipper Fleet. I was invited, and I said, the band 78th Fraser Highlanders is playing in Cleveland. And I went to the concert. And I just remember that was like a crazy moment, man. I just was like, yeah, I'm going to go to a bagpipe concert over a sweet birthday party. Man, it was an awesome decision. I mean, it was a great decision. And then I could look back and be like, yeah, I played in that band. And I played and was champion supreme in Ontario 2 years in a row and 11th in the world one of those years. It's like, yeah, it was badass as hell. So yeah, man, it's been an awesome ride. I mean, it's taught me the big life lessons that this has taught me. I think it really comes down to drive and motivation. If you want success, you have to have drive and you have to have motivation for success. And learning tunes and perfecting them and trying to be as best as possible. That's some of those things that comes as a result of those. And I just staying humble and keeping grounded even if things are going well. Just being a good person. I mean, Jimmy's lessons weren't just bagpipe lessons, they were also life lessons. And I mean, he's a major crucial part of my life too. So was fortunate enough to see him just the other day, so it was good.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I think anytime like a story like that, I hear a story like that, right? And it's so bagpiping, right? Most of the people that I don't know how many people you actually run into that are like well, obviously you have friends in the community, but that's kind of what I'm getting to. The point is that I would consider bagpiping and the bagpiping community to be a relatively like less known one, right? So for instance, I'll use a personal comparison. I play ball hockey, and it's big in like Pittsburgh and big in like other pockets of the country, but it's not like ice hockey, it's not football, it's not like, you're not part of a huge community. I always think it's really interesting when you hear a story like that from one of those, we'll call it like, again, smaller communities, less good people and less niche people in it, right? Niche, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to hear that it's just the same as everything else. Like it's like you're doing
Hmm.
something different, but it's like the people that you met, you've been friends with for a long time, the experiences that you've had, just as fulfilling as somebody else doing something that's like mainstream and like they're a part of whatever. And it's just so cool because I don't think that enough people like embrace the fact that maybe they like something that's a little different than like
Yeah.
the norm, right? And maybe you and I wouldn't like that other niche thing that person's talking about. I've never played bagpipes, right? I've maybe heard them a few times in my life, right? But anytime
Yeah.
that I hear something like that, I'm like, that is so fucking cool because it's something totally different. But I know that whatever your experience has been in that niche thing has probably been just as good, if not better, than the experiences that I've had in other niche things in my
Yeah.
life, and so on and so forth. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the
That's a
story.
good, no, of
Yeah.
course. I think that's what you're calling out too is if you have a passion or you like something, um, I mean, finding communities is a humongous part of that. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
meet people that have shared interests. It's easier to talk to them, of course, because you have something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it just makes the experience all the better. Hopefully, you're meeting good people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I think that to really enjoy things in life, follow the things you're passionate about, the things that you love, finding people that have those shared interests, and just building friendships and relationships that last because of those kinds of things. I think,
Mm-hmm.
that's one perspective of life that, I feel like most people, to have a really fulfilling life, it's to find your passions and have people that share those passions with you. I mean,
Yep.
it could be your significant other, your wife. I mean, you have your own passions, but just building relationships. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's a ginormous thing.
Absolutely.
That makes life fulfilling.
100%. 100%. I got a quick question about that for you on your perspective being in that community. Have you seen it grown? Have you seen it grow over the course of the time that you've been in it, just from when you were really young to now? Like, how has it changed at all? Have you picked up on any of that?
Um, I think it's stayed about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little more interest. I mean, I don't think there's just like influxes of
Right.
people. I think social media
Mm-hmm.
has helped those kinds of things. I remember there was an article on BuzzFeed like years ago
Yeah.
talking about the World Pipe Band Championships, and it's like when someone sees something on BuzzFeed, they're not there for bagpiping; they're there for whatever the hell
Right.
content they
Right.
post, and they see bagpipe and they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just one example for bagpiping. And
Mm-hmm.
that's for literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's stayed relatively the same. Um, yeah, a lot of great people, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun. It's tough too. I mean, the summers. If I This year is obviously different, but most of my summers are not spent like at home. I'll be in Maryland one weekend, and then the next weekend I'm in Michigan or something like that to go to just bagpipe competitions and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So um, it's kind of given me that sense of adventure and enjoyment of driving. I love driving
Yeah.
and just being able to see new places and see
Mm-hmm.
different things. So yeah, man, it's all great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you.
Actually, this right here, that is Bess, my wife. Our first conversation, she asked, we were at Who Farted actually, and we are kind of forced to talk in kind of a way. It was like, okay, we have to talk now because our friends are talking. Let's
Yeah.
just kick off a conversation.
Yeah.
And she's so good with conversations, and she just goes, "Oh, do you like to travel?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been to Scotland a few times, Canada, and it's all because of bagpiping."
Yeah.
She goes, "Oh, why have you been to Scotland?" I was like, "Oh, I play bagpipes," and like her face just dropped. I felt like, almost like one of those shows, like her tongue is rolling on the floor. Like, what?
Yeah.
Um, and I've come to find out she loves bagpipes. She wanted to play bagpipes.
Oh my.
So she's played different instruments, but her parents gave her the pipe chanter kit and how to learn bagpipes years
Oh
ago.
my gosh.
And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. um, and it was just like instant connection kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It was like, oh shit, like this is a girl that just met her, and immediately it's like she's letting me talk about bagpipes
Yeah.
for 30 minutes. And I'm like, never in my life has this ever happened. So I'm like, okay, I need to keep a close eye on this one. She's pretty good to start.
Yeah. Definitely a
So
match made in heaven there.
yeah, I know, man. So I gotta start teaching her because
Yeah.
she wants to play, but I gotta start teaching her.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
It was cool. It was her first birthday. I actually wrote her a tune, and it was like the first tune I ever wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And my best man actually played her down the aisle, who I play bagpipes with. He played her tune on the way down. It was like, wow, this was like such a touching moment, man.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. Such a skill. I don't have that skill. I don't have the musical skill at all. So it's always, again, it's one of those things where it's like when you hear that, it's just great to almost experience through like a story or something. So again, I really appreciate that, man. I kind of maybe like to kind of like tie all that together there. So like you said, this summer was weird, but in the past you've been going to competitions and you've been doing all sorts of stuff, playing in different, spaces and stuff like that. Just to touch on it briefly, is it something that you also kind of promote? Like, you're a professional bagpiper, but like, what does that mean? Like, you're playing in competitions, but it also means that you are like available for like hire and things like that as well? Or how does that whole part of it work? Is that something you're focused on?
So anyone is available for hire.
Yeah.
Whether some people should be available to hire is questionable.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at other bagpipers in Columbus, and there's a lot of great people, but it's amazing. People, oh, amazing bagpipe, and I know enough about bagpipes. I'm like, man, this guy is charging people hundreds of dollars, and it's like he could barely play.
Yeah.
It's like kind of upsetting, but it's just the way things work. I can't complain about that. So anyone is available for hire. I do teach. Just being a professional just gives me that designation, and that's the level of competition that I play. There's people that do bagpiping full time. They compete. There's prize money. That's the big thing in competition now is that professionals get prize money if they do well in competition. So yeah, that's really the big thing. I mean, I set up my own website and different pages and stuff like that just so I can get jobs, and it's really nice to have that kind of fallback. If anything ever did happen, God forbid, to my job or something like that, and I could just never find a job again, I've got a skill that I know that I'm good at. I mean, working with technology and stuff like that, I can't set up websites. Am I good at it? I don't know, but just knowing that is a potential fallback is a really nice piece to this. And, it's also a supplement to income too, because you get random gigs and stuff like that, maybe for tomorrow, or maybe I think I got one for 2024.
Wow.
Someone sadly is like already planning their passing away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can accept this. I don't.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's just like I don't even know where I'm going to be in 2024. Yeah. Like people are planning, and that's good, but I don't know if I can co-plan with you just at this point in time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great stuff, man. I appreciate it. It's like one of the best things that's happened. One of the best things I've been able to do in my life. There's a stone. Our last trip to Scotland, well, actually it wasn't the last trip. There was one where it was just me and Bess, and we just did a road trip around Scotland. And so we went to the Isle of Skye, and the Isle of Skye is where Pibroch originated. And so it was originated by a group of family named the McCrimmons. And so I'm looking at a picture right now of me at the McCrimmon cairn, which is a cairn is like a pile of stones, and it's just like a memorial to someone. This one's to the McCrimmons. And I played at the cairn, and it was like we had shit weather. I mean, it's Scotland, rain, wind, doesn't matter. That day we were there, it was just us. I didn't think it was going to be just us. It was just us. brought my pipes, and the sun was shining. It was the greatest day. I mean, and it was just being there and just playing. I'm like, holy crap! Like my entire life up into that moment is because of these people. You know what I mean? Or it was just such a big part to be there that like I've just spent all this time, effort, money, my parents' time, effort, money to get me to a place where I'm competing and doing all of these personally awesome things. And I'm like at where it began. And man, that was like the coolest thing. I was super emotional about it. But yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, all comes full circle there. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That's something, man. But yeah, I mean, obviously you're doing a lot of great things. You know, I'm so happy that we had this opportunity to kind of chat and run through everything. And like I said, pretty much everybody that comes on the show, you know, is at a certain point in their life now, and a lot of them are going through things and transitioning and everything like that. So I'm just excited to continue to see your journey, man. I'm excited for everything you have going on. You know, and I do greatly appreciate you chatting with me today. I have the final three questions that we ask everyone on the show here, just to kind of like bring it all together and kind of seal and tie everything, because I think they provide some insight into kind of the things that we've talked about and just like again, kind of the show in general. The first one is, and I think you actually alluded to this a little bit already. You must have known what the question was. The question is, and let me provide some context. Throughout my life and what I've seen through people, you become molded into a certain person based off of people directly in your life, indirectly through YouTube or books or groups or communities or anything like that. And I always find it very interesting to get the answer to this question, because it really, again, provides insight onto how you got to where it is and like where you're, you know, like just the person you've become based on the influences that you've had. So the question to get to it is, what are your top three? If you can narrow it down to your top three influences, they could be specific people, they could be groups, they could be people you've never met. Like I said, I think you've already mentioned a couple, but just again, if you try to narrow it to three, it could be more, but that's always the number that I go with.
Okay. Jimmy McIntosh and my dad. Those are two incredible people in my life. My dad is always a person, and I hope to be able to do this for my child and potential future children. It's just opportunity. Anytime we asked to do something, he was there and supportive, and also wanted to provide as much as possible to kind of follow what we wanted. Bagpiping was, of course, something that we both melded on, and that was, you know, we grew a nice relationship over that as well. So, you know, my dad's an awesome person. I appreciate him a lot. Jimmy McIntosh, again, every lesson, there was some sort of Jimmy adage or just some sort of thing that he'd do. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, he taught me so much. Staying humble. That was always number one. Being a gentleman, and being humble and staying a gentleman, and don't shoot your foot.
Yeah.
He'd say that just for life in general, but was also, you know, if we're in a competition and, you know, I'd mess up, I'd break down, which means I ended before I was supposed to.
Yeah.
If he was watching, he'd look at me and make a gun with his hand, and then he'd shoot his own foot. I was like, yeah. Other influences. Oh my gosh.
Even if you want to call on, so this is just an idea. Even if you want to call on the other pieces of your life, because again, like you, like so many other people, have different facets, right? Like maybe you have some people that really influenced you in the technology space. I think that's always super interesting. It's tough to narrow it to three. I know it's difficult. No. I can't actually do it, so it's a hard question.
Super helpful though. I appreciate that. So Buzz, my mentor at Nationwide, he was pretty crucial into my development as well, just where I'm at today. I remember actually writing down when I left the collaboratory, when the program was over and I was moving on. I had a notebook. I kept notes. I'm a big note taker. I need to get better at taking it. But I wrote him down. I wrote Jimmy. I wrote my dad, and I wrote my grandma. And my grandma passed away in 2014, and it's like one of the best people, and it's so hard to have them not be there. She's been a huge influence on my life as well. Technology wise, okay, hold on. I think the big people, like, I guess Bill Gates, I don't know. I haven't really thought of influences in the technology space. I mean, Edward Snowden is a person I always listen to, and I read his book not too long ago. I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast with him too. And just a very interesting person. I mean, he put himself and what he knew, even though it was not the popular opinion, or something that was confidential and should not be out. I mean, he thought of other people, he thought of the nation, he thought of the United States above himself at some point. And I think there's a lot of courage that goes into that, into a lot of the whistleblowers that exist out there. It's a tough spot to be. And I mean, they're cherished and hated completely all at the same time. It's quite amazing. Bagpiping, Jimmy McIntosh, of course. The Field Marshal Montgomery pipe band, they're just a pipe band and one of the best in the world. You listen to them, you're like, holy shit, these people are amazing. Stuart Little, not like the mouse Stuart Little.
The movie, love the movie.
yeah, not the movie. This guy he just is the best of the best. I mean, you listen to him and you're like, I quit. Because actually I listened to him when I was in Oban, Scotland, the west coast of Scotland. And I just remember listening to his MSR, and he played his marches, and it was like, that was fantastic. And he went into this one tune, and this tune is like a prolific tune. And I just remember him going into it, and it just was perfect. Playing the moment, his bagpipe, everything. It just was like, I am listening to sheer perfection right now. And I smiled. I never sat there and just was like, wow, I am listening to just absolute greatness right now. He was huge. Influences, man, my wife, she's amazing. She is very different than me. And it's like, we have so many similarities, but the way she sees life and the way I see life, I'm super plan, goal oriented. She is plan and goal oriented, but in just a different way. But her ability to connect with people, whether meeting for the first time or, they've been best friends forever, I mean, is something that I've never seen in someone before. And it's like, I just find it so impressive. And I hope someday that I can attain the level of, I just remember a wedding. She was in. I was in the wedding party, and she was at a table of people she's never met before. And I remember coming back to see her, and then one of the girls at the table was like, "Right, why have you never showed me your girlfriend before? Like, she's amazing. Like, I hate you for not showing me." And I'm just like, that was just one case of so many. Like, it's amazing. I hope I can be like that in some ways, and I hope I'm helping her along her journey.
Yeah, definitely.
Stressing her out with goals and stuff.
It's what relationships and marriage, I think, are all about, man. I think you continue to build off one another. I know that I see it all the time, and in my relationships and other people's, I think that's great. But so you think that rounds out the influences for the most part?
Yeah, I think it does. I'm sure if I sat down and really thought, I could find additional people and stuff like that. But I think it's good.
I know.
Family is very important to me, and just these other people as well. Jimmy being one. Again, I'm just gonna keep saying his name. He's one of the best people I know.
No, absolutely, man. I it's again always good to see, and it's awesome that you have so many good people in your life. Again, some of us have more people close to us. Some of us have people that we look up to indirectly, right? Like so many internet influencers nowadays that are putting out good information into the world. I just think, you know, the more of that, the better. And yeah, just again, awesome people that you have. So dope.
Yeah, finance people too. Sorry,
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey, of course.
Dave.
As we're going through it, Dave Ramsey, of course.
Yeah.
And there's a few folks too. Bigger Pockets Money podcast, I think, is something that everyone should listen to. They're extremely good. Mindy Jensen, Scott Trench, those two just talk to people and just listen to other people and their journeys and stuff like that. How to Money is another podcast too that I listen to quite often, that I'm like, these two dudes are just normal guys and they drink a beer on the podcast and they talk money. I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Definitely authentic. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Second question out of the big three is, what is like your best advice that you could give to somebody? So like people watching, all the things that you've done, obviously there's a bunch of different aspects of life, but what is your just best overall life advice that you've come to maybe you think about all the time, and something that that reigns true for you?
I think sorry.
It's all good.
So I think one of them is staying humble. The biggest advice, staying humble, but always choosing to do what you think is right for you. What leads you to being happy, but also to being successful as well. I think it's important to stay grounded and just realizing the steps that you take, but it takes a step. You have to take a step. If you don't take the step, nothing will happen. So I think it's important to just find that courage to, you know, moving was hard. I didn't want to move, but I knew at that moment that was what was right for me. And I did it, and it's again paying dividends. So
there you go. Yep. Just get started. Yep. I like that. Yeah. Okay, last one is actually not even really a question. It's kind of more just like a layup. So we've talked about a lot of different things, and the thing that I always want to do with this show is I want to make sure that if somebody like yourself, right, a guest, you know, sitting across from me or sitting out in Columbus, Ohio on a virtual Zoom stream for me, I greatly appreciate that you came on, and I want to do anything that I can with whatever platform that we have here to, like, you know, put your stuff out there, right? So if you have anything to promote, either for yourself, like maybe your website, stuff like that, or just other people in general, if anybody that you'd like to mention and promote now, I can put all the links in the description so other people can get some more value out of that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a website if you want to check out some bagpiping stuff. It is, I did a small change to it. It used to be bagpiper-ryanpraskovich.com, and I'm like, it's just, whatever. You know, it's kind of boring. So Ohio State, anytime you watch any NFL game, I mean, there's a lot of people that come from Ohio State, and they're always like, the Ohio State.
Yeah.
I changed my website to thecolumbusbagpiper.com. So
I like that.
I've got the columbusbagpiper.com. I think I've got the Columbus Bagpiper too on Instagram. I really don't post that much. Again, it's all kind of side hustly.
Yeah.
Nothing really. I'm like, okay, I need to do this. Although I would like to get better at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's about it. I don't got much more, man.
Yeah. No, it's all good. No, we'll put it in there just because maybe we have a huge bagpiper enthusiast audience or something like that'll catch this one. Maybe with the SEO of the video.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be cool.
Definitely. But like I said, man, I just want to always do that. I want to always try to give back as much as I can to the guests because I greatly appreciate it. I love having these conversations. This has been a tremendous one. But yeah, like I said earlier, I'm just excited to see everything that you have moving forward, how you guys do and continue to build the family and build your career and financial success and all that sort of stuff. It just really gets me going when I hear other people doing cool stuff. So again, I thank you so much, man, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Fueled by Progress with my guest, Ryan Praskovich. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.